Welcome. Thanks for shopping by.
I already have a teaser.
Yep. Control us, Daddy Cody.
Leave that in. Why don't you? Greetings, Rommies, and welcome to RomComms, the podcast sharing the joy of sim racing and motorsports. Welcome. Thanks for stopping by. I'm Cody, and I'll be the host today. Today, I am joined by Serta and Aika. Feel free to say hello, guys.
Hello, guys.
Hey, guys.
Starting off the discussion today, we have a major bombshell. So, Reiza and Straight 4 have entered into a strategic partnership in developing Straight 4's newest sim, or I guess Straight 4's first sim. So Ian Bell, who has been in sim racing development since, the GTR days, or perhaps even before. Yeah, he's been in for as long as, most people have been in sim racing, probably longer. And so he's the founder of Straight 4 Studios, this new spin-off startup that he's created. So he and Renato Simeone, who is Reiza's lead developer, they've been in contact over the past few months. They've visited in person, but with the strategic partnership, we're looking back at kind of what they had done before. So Slightly Mad Studios, which was Ian Bell's previous venture, they are the ones behind Project Cars and Project Cars 2 and the Project Cars 3, and we all know how that turned out. But anyways, they licensed the Project Cars Madness engine to Reiza to develop Automobilista 2. And that was great. They did wonderful, wonderful things with Automobilista 2. So the groundwork for this partnership, it had already really been laid out. Now, shortly after licensing the code, Slightly Mad Studios was bought out by Codemasters, who was then bought out by EA. Project Cars 3, Ian Bell jumped ship and founded Straight 4. So now you're caught up on how we're getting Straight 4. If you watched the news of the week on the 21st, then you will have seen the image, and we can pop it up on screen, of some of these, development images that Ian Bell has been teasing. He's been putting out screenshots of their new project on Twitter. And of the cars that it's showing, they all have the Reiza liveries, including still the Reiza number plates. And so definitely the new project, even before I think they announced this strategic partnership, it was definitely like a Reiza thing. Like there's Reiza involved in this in some capacity. It may just be that he's using their assets for development.
I expect that he was using already the Madness engine, the Madness Automobilista 2 engine.
The question is, what does this all mean?
One thing I can say, because it's official by Renato Simeone, is it will not have to do with Automobilista 2. Automobilista 2's development will continue, and will continue at its own pace. That's something that Renato has said very clearly, asked directly in the forum, and he said clearly, nope, this project has nothing to do with Automobilista 2, and no, we're not closing shop with Automobilista 2. In fact, the newest version came out on Friday, so to speak, as release candidate, and we're all waiting for the 1.5 in about a month or two, which is going to introduce even newer physics. So Automobilista 2 continues. This for sure. Now, what Straight 4 and Reiza have together, I don't think it's going to be Automobilista 3. I suppose it's going to be, what did Ian Bell call it?
Well, they can't. They can't use the Project Cars name.
No, but didn't he say that it was going to be GTR Revived or something like that?
Yeah, it was GTR Revived, GTR Revamped, or GTR 3 or something like that. For sure. That's what I remember. This is going a while back now. But, well, the cynic in me thinks that it was a long play by Ian Bell to make sure that he retained control of the Madness engine. The hopeful one that spent nigh on 1,200 hours playing Project Cars 2 hopes that it was a way for Ian Bell to continue the work of Project Cars, free from the shackles of the Codemasters deal.
So this is something that I suspect too, that he already knew he had to sell, and he knew he could not sell to Reiza because they would not be able to buy SMS. But that he at least sold the rights to the Madness engine, to the whole code. And from what I gather from reading between the lines and so on, Reiza got the whole of the code of the Madness engine, line by line by line by line, because they've gone very deep into that code, found things that were not active but were there in the Madness engine. I'm pretty sure that Reiza got the whole access to the code, which is a lot of access. And what I don't know is if this was really already planned by Ian Bell. What was not planned is Codemasters being sold to EA, but I suppose that's even more fun for Ian Bell, that he can show the middle finger to EA.
Which was the point of Slightly Mad Studios in the first place, was putting the middle finger to EA because of how they dealt with his studio while they were making the original GTR games. So lends credence to a GTR revival for sure. There's so many questions, and it's also very intermingled and complicated now. I thought the Slightly Mad Studios purchase was because of the Madness engine, because Codemasters, let's be very kind to them and say, while their arcade off-road handling is by far and away the best and the most immersive, it's not the most accurate on track or really off track either. Is that a fair way of saying it?
I don't know how much EA had to do with that, but
No.
The way that they handled Project Cars 3 shows that they were not really interested in the Madness engine. I would say they were more interested in the headcount, in the developers, than in the Madness engine.
That's fascinating, because those developers were the ones that made the Madness engine. I don't understand. I'm going to say it now. Whatever Straight 4 end up coming out with, I'm probably going to buy. If for no other reason, I'm going to buy it because Project Cars 2 was way, way too good for what it was.
Yeah, I mean, I loved Project Cars 2. I loved GTR 2 as well.
Yeah.
Basically, anytime Ian Bell does something for the second time, it's bound to be
I'm more than willing to fund this first game to make sure the second game happens. Well, no, but
exactly.
that might not be necessary. Reiza has been putting the work in on the engine.
That's
So
true. That's
if
true.
if what Ian Bell is getting access to is essentially the most up-to-date version, it's like a reskinning of Android. If you're, as a manufacturer, working with Android and you get the most up-to-date version of Android, you get all the latest features just baked in there, ready to go and configured. We could be looking at the Madness engine that Ian Bell always wanted but never had the time or the money to make happen.
I think that's gonna be what this cooperation means. I've tried to find out within Reiza with all possible and impossible means, but everyone is tight-lipped if they know anything at all. What I think is going to happen is they're gonna share the code. They're gonna share the code base, and anything that Reiza does there, Straight 4 is going to be able to use, and anything that Straight 4 does, Reiza is going to be able to use. At the end, we may get Automobilista 2++ or Automobilista 3 or whatever Reiza does, and GTR Revival or whatever it's going to be called, based on the same code.
I just realized if they do make it GTR Revival, that's going to be GT Racing Revival, and then we're getting into the Ducati territory of how they just keep adding R's onto their bikes. One of their super bikes actually has 3 R's after it because they keep like reviving it and just add another R.
Revival.
Yes, that's the one. Or just keep adding, like, it says GT Racing Revival Reunited Revamped. They've got like 3-4 games in that just by adding R's onto the end of it. I think that whatever we end up getting is going to be a good thing, a net good thing for sure. As Cody has said, every time Ian Bell puts his name at least to a project, it tends to come up smelling somewhat of roses. So I'm more than happy to at least keep an eye on this one. We'll bring you all the news, obviously, on a weekly basis anyway, whether it's going well or not.
All right, with that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about Rennsport. They do have a few things. There's actually an event going on right now. They announced a couple weeks ago, I think, their Summer Summit, which is going on yesterday and today at the time of recording in Munich, Germany. Ahead of that, they announced the launch of a closed beta for Rennsport. So people are going to start getting their hands on Rennsport. There's no word on how many people will get access. But of those who request access, it will be split 50-50. So 50% is going to be first come, first serve. And then after that, the remaining 50% is going to be random distribution.
What we should have done is installed their mobile app, which we had opinions on it in the team chat, did we not? Something about it not being worth it, and
I mean, it's you can get an account, choose a car, choose a livery for the car, see when the next race is for them. I don't care about those races, so that's about all you can do there right now. I mean, I suppose in the future you will be able to buy and sell cars and mods and whatever based on what we've heard from Rennsport, but for now, there's about all you can do, which is not much.
The problem I have with it, and again, being the very kindest that I possibly can, is that if this was a console thing, like when Grand Theft Auto did it with GTA Online and they had their phone app and you could only change certain things from the phone, that made a lot of sense because they were working with consoles. Rennsport's on PC. Why would I use a phone when I have a 34-inch ultra-wide screen that I can use with a GTX 1080 Ti or whatever? Why would I look at my phone?
Because you're at work and you definitely want to buy the car that Keke Rosberg raced on the weekend and are trying to get to be the one with the best price for that. I don't know. Just grasping at straws here because I'm with you. If it's not for handling stuff in your account while you're away from the computer, I don't understand that at all. And I even less understand why put developers into developing an app when they have more important things to do.
There is one exception to that last point. I totally agree with you otherwise, but the only way that I can see the development time not being a complete waste in that is if the app is essentially just a web portal and you're accessing a web page will essentially transfer to your PC when you rescale your browser to be the same aspect ratio as a phone. That's the only way that I can see it working.
Do people not have browsers on their phones, though?
But there was a fad years ago now, slightly off topic, but there was a fad years ago where everything had to have an app. And the concept of adding browser shortcuts to your home screen hadn't hit the mainstream yet. So there were a raft of websites which would essentially create an APK that literally used a full screen Chrome window and directed you to a web page. I used it loads because the Chrome UI at the time was awful. It got in the way, it was really obtrusive. So to be able to click on the website that I wanted and go straight to it without all of the Chrome UI and everything like that, and I could just close it like a normal app, was a really nice thing to have. Nowadays, I'm totally with you. That kind of move would make a lot of sense.
In any case, I still fail to see what the USP for sim racers of Rennsport will be. At the moment, what I'm seeing there is I'm able to drive GT3 cars at Hockenheim, I'm able to drive them at Spa, I'm able to drive them at Monza, and as we know from the weekend, I'm able to drive Praga R1 at Monza, Spa, and Hockenheim, and whatever. That's not something that I cannot do with other sims, so...
More's the point, it's not something that you can't do from a browser. We have Sim Racing GP, we have Grid Finder, we have, not Pitskill.
Rennsport's own website.
Yes, Rennsport's own website. They all have the ability for you to go onto the website and schedule your race from work. The app is not necessary. Just give people a beta.rennsport.gg website to go to, or an alpha it doesn't really matter. And you don't need to, but then you lose all the permissions of your location and your camera and things like that. And so then it becomes nefarious. And then that raises even more questions about why does it have to be an app?
No, yeah, but I was talking more about in general about Rennsport. GTR Revival, I imagine that this is going to go on a different track because Ian Bell is known to go on different tracks that are away from what other sim racing companies do. So I very much expect Ian Bell's company to deliver something that is going to be different. That for sure, because Project Cars and Project Cars 2 were different to whatever else people were doing. But Rennsport per se is, for now, from what we are seeing right now, doing exactly the same as every other company. They have UA 5. Yeah, okay. Assetto Corsa Competizione has UA 5. They have GT3s at Monza. Tell me one sim that doesn't have GT3s at Monza. They have the Praga R1. Yeah, well, Breakfast is a simcade. But yeah, I get it. The Praga R1, I think only Race Room has it officially, but there are more than enough mods for the Praga R1 Assetto Corsa, and I would have to look it up, but I think also for rFactor 2. So if I'm a sim racer, I mean, I am going to take a look at Rennsport because, of course, I try to know about everything and anything at sim racing because we are doing a channel about sim racing. But if I would be Joe Sim Racer out there, why would I be interested in Rennsport?
I think what they're trying to be is a modern iRacing. I thoroughly believe that they are going for the iRacing audience, and they're trying to build into their ecosystem not only iRacing, but also trading paints and race department, essentially.
Which, by the way, has been bought by Porsche too, so maybe you're right there.
As an engineer myself, who makes setups for my team members, the ability to make a setup for my team and then sell it on the Rennsport marketplace for it doesn't need to be a lot, like a couple of quid for twiddling some dials and knobs in a way that makes a car very drivable and fairly fast. It's something I'd be doing anyway. And it's much like, funnily enough, it's much like the new business areas, the things like artists and things like that online, is I'd be doing this anyway. I may as well make some money from it.
Okay, but what many mod makers in the Assetto Corsa arena are doing is they have a Patreon. They offer their products for free.
Yep.
And if you want to support them because you like their mods, you just become a patron.
Yep, absolutely. But this
it would be something like what these groups are doing only on Rennsport. That's what you're saying.
Pretty much, yeah. But the idea would be that you pay per item that you're buying, so it's not a monthly thing, it's a one-off thing. The online side of it would be click-through. So if you download an Assetto Corsa mod and the mod maker says, hey, if you want to support me, you can join my patron, then that requires them leaving the race department site, going to a new site, signing in on that new site, then clicking up. If they don't have their card information already in place, they've got to put their card information in. And at any point of those 4 stages, they might just go, this is too much hassle, and click away. Rennsport unifies that entire experience into a one-click buy. That's what it's doing. And don't get me wrong, there will be people who don't like it. But if you don't like it, put your liveries on there. Don't charge for it. Leave your Patreon link in the description. That will still work the same. You just have a different option that has much less transactional friction. I think that's where they're going. Again, there's 2 ways to look at it. You can be very cynical about how it's a cash grab from Porsche to get in on the sim racing industry. They've bought up race department. They clearly have sights set on some kind of big presence. You never know. They may have had conversations around buying iRacing. An iRacing owned by Porsche would be an even more interesting proposition. I think that's where it's going, and the cynic in me thinks it is going to be a major cash grab. The optimist in me hopes that it's going to end up making a lot of mod makers and livery makers and people like that a lot more money for the hobby that they enjoy.
As a livery maker myself,
Yes.
as a livery maker myself, I think that one of the beauties of being able to make liveries is the custom nature of it and the replica real life nature of liveries. Those are kind of where I find the most value in running a real life livery that I want to drive or I want to race against. I'm a big fan of like historic grids. GTR2, GT Legends, those were great for the modding community of making real life liveries, and you could run an entire full grid of cars in different classes, and they all had the same livery that they would have had at that exact event because people made those. Now, if I had to buy each of those, there's no chance that I'm getting the whole group unless I'm like spending so much money, especially if people are like wanting to charge $5 or $2, you know, per livery.
They do just sell a whole pack.
Yeah, I mean, you could sell a whole pack, but then you're still like, there's still that like transactional barrier as opposed to it just being, you know, for the love of the game.
Yes, but again, I don't think that's not going to stop anybody from, if you are making liveries for free, then making your liveries for Rennsport is not going to cost you any more or less than what you did before. The tools were all free. The only difference that Rennsport was going to offer is the potential to gain value from your livery making. There's no reason why you can't just say, oh, here, look, you can have this hash for free because I like you or something. Or you buy this one livery and you get 5 others for free as part of it. There's any number of potential that we could do because they're all unique.
I guess. Sure.
What I'm hearing, Cody, is you're a stick in the mud and you don't like change.
Well, okay, change is fine, but that's if it's a good change. This to me feels like a pointless change because from my perspective, it's like, okay, sure, we're putting all of this stuff, you know, all this infrastructure in to allow you to put things behind a paywall, but then you don't have to use it. It's like, well, sure, but people are going to use it. You know, if I'm a user of it, of this system, and I'm browsing the marketplace for liveries in another sim where all of this may have been modding community done for the love of the game. Well, now if I wanted to do the same thing in Rennsport, I'm out hundreds of dollars because the people who put in the effort to make the mods, as opposed to doing it as a hobby, that sort of thing, they want to charge for it. And I say this as a livery maker myself. I don't charge for my liveries. I've got my link. If people want to throw me a bone, that's fine, but I don't do it as a job.
Yeah. But as I say, I don't think there's going to be anything that's stopping you from still doing what you're doing for the love of it and doing it for free. It's only when you start wanting to charge that Rennsport might say, okay, can we just have a little bit of that because we are hosting your files and we have been hosting your files for a while now. Oh, that's interesting. The current plan for Rennsport is a free-to-enter model.
Yes, similar to what RaceRoom do. We don't know how many cars and tracks are going to be there. Maybe those that they have been making in the last half a year to a year. But yeah, it's going to be like that they're going to have some basic cars and tracks like RaceRoom. I think even iRacing, I know, but in iRacing you pay monthly already before, and then you're allowed to drive some cars and tracks. Yeah. Okay.
So the way that iRacing works is there are, because it's something that I've been looking into because GT3 cars are boring. The iRacing you pay, it's around £10 a month. I think it's €8.99 USD.
And then you pay per car and track.
So you pay per track. So if you don't own the track, you can't drive on it, and you have to buy the car that you're driving, similar to the rFactor 2 model as it is now. They do have some free series, which essentially loans you a car to be able to drive in those series, but you don't keep that car. But essentially that changes every week. There's not really any consistency from that. If Rennsport is free to enter, that's taken a lot of my judgment away from the game. I've got to be honest. Yeah, Because if I can log in for free and pay for tracks and get all of the benefits that Rennsport has at the moment, that's very difficult to argue against.
Let's talk about F1 Manager 23. They've got a few new changes there, and I don't know a darn thing about F1 Manager anything, so y'all take it away.
I expect that F1 Manager 23 is going to be as exciting as the Formula One season 2023.
That good, huh?
Yeah.
The one thing that fascinates me is how are they going to have the event changer thing that they had, that they're putting in this year apparently, where you can replay certain races and put Fernando Alonso on slicks on intermediates instead of slicks at Monaco this year, instead of keeping him on slick tires and having to make another pit stop, etc., etc. How are they going to do that if it's releasing in the year with the races later in the year? Are they recording data from every single race and they're going to put that in so that when we get to the end of the year?
So there's two ways I think they can do it. One, they do something like Motorsport Manager did and has, which is the challenges. Oh, you have to see to it that you get this driver to, I don't know, place 2 or into the podium or whatever. And they use the cars and so on, but they are not directly related to anything that has really happened. Or they have real situations and they're gonna be updating it because I suppose they plan to update F1 Manager 2023 until October and then kill it as they did with 22.
Yeah.
So they're gonna be updating it with new situations, and that's what you get. It's gonna be most certainly a one-off, like, hey, here's a challenge you can do, and then it has nothing to do with a career that you may have at a site. And truth to be told, compared to F1 Manager 22, which already was lacking, go and get Motorsport Manager. It's the same fun for less money, and you can put mods into it. For me, it's something like an upgrade, like a DLC of F1 Manager 22 and less a full-blown game, but maybe there's people who are gonna buy it. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure someone will attempt
To buy it.
We'll still give it a shot. There's clearly still engagement and money in the F1 license. What Frontier are doing with it.
From what I hear from the F1 Manager 22 community, most are giving it a pass.
Yeah, that's understandable.
It's just I cannot find a series in sim racing at all that I care about less than F1 Manager.
That's a completely different thing. I feel you, because I'm the same way. Like, F1 has been boring me for the last 5 years or so, and I'd rather get IndyCar Manager 23 or whatever. But if you haven't played any racing manager games until now, it could be something that interests you. Again, I recommend anyone who is interested in any kind of motorsport management game, go and get Motorsport Manager. I think it's for 10 USD euro at Steam at the moment. You get mods that put the newest cars and groups in there. You can race open wheelers, which are kinda F1. You can race GT3s or some kind of tin top cars, and you can race endurance. All three in one game for much less than F1 Manager 23. Yes, it does not have those F1 images that F1 Manager 23 has. I don't care that much.
I think that
I
pretty
want to
much sums it
drive,
up.
man. I want to drive.
And that's the other side. That's the other part of the issue with these motorsport manager games. Anyway, is I think anybody who, like us, would play them are playing them when they probably shouldn't be, because they're not at their sim rig. Basically,
I'm playing them when I'm too sleepy to start a race. Want to spend, I don't know, half an hour or an hour playing something that's interesting or mildly interesting. And F1 Manager 22 was at most mildly interesting. F1 Manager 23 is something that only interests me because in our news we talk about everything sim racing and adjacent, and that's the only reason why I'm gonna take a look at F1 Manager 23 at all.
Put bluntly, we play these games so you don't have to.
Yeah.
Speaking of games that we do like to play, however,
Mm-hmm.
I would like to talk about the 720S Evo.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So with all of the new cars that have come to Assetto Corsa Competizione, you go in any open, semi-open lobby from here to, well, it doesn't matter what time of day you're going on. Everybody loves the new cars, the Ferrari 296, Porsche 911, 992 GT3R, and the Lamborghini Huracan Evo 2 GT3.
Is it the new cars or the new physics?
I have a theory, and it's starting to be backed up by, funnily enough, my experience in the new McLaren, that it is both. And much like with one point, all of the 2015 to 2018 cars essentially got left in the dirt. With this 1.9 update, it feels as though they have applied the new physics and didn't bother to update the older cars. So the new cars have beautiful weight balance. They have incredible driving physics. They have so much better tyre wear than what I was seeing in the endurance races that I was doing before. And they just hold the road like nothing else. They feel like a different class. Just to remember, the GT2 cars are due to be coming out soon as well. So the new tyre model is going to make those GT2 cars even more exciting to drive than the existing GT3 cars. I have no doubt whatsoever that GT2 pack was delayed so that they could update them to the latest physics, and I do think that the older cars are now basically haven't been touched with this new update and will stay like that. So I'm really lucky that they've brought out the new McLaren so that I can continue to drive. The McLaren, in short, is very much an evolution. The majority of the body panels are the same, so livery makers rejoice. Your liveries will mostly fit. It's just the front bumper that is a distinct change. The front bumper also now has 4 levels of splitter downforce generation, which is a massive departure from before. I've not found any real use from it yet. I believe that where it is going to be used most is places like Monza and Paul Ricard, where the old McLaren, you had to do a lot of platform shifting and rake adjustment to be able to get the car to turn in how you wanted to during some of the higher speed corners. And when you take the aero off, the platform becomes almost too stable, so you find yourself trying to destabilize it to get the turn in. All of that's gone now. The suspension is even more finely adjustable. There is even more wing that you can now add to the rear as well, and it is all around just an incredible package that demolishes curbs. I took the stable, safe setup, stiffened the springs, put the aero balance forward by taking a couple of notches of wing off, and it became the easiest car that I've ever driven in Assetto Corsa Competizione. It is absolutely effortless. And if the new DLC cars are anything like it, then I absolutely understand why everyone's jumping for them.
Yeah, I'm gonna be watching those GT2 cars, and I mean, I would prefer if they were GT1s, but I do know that there is no GT1 anymore, so they would have to do classic GT1 cars. So GT2 cars hopefully are as interesting.
Hey, you know where you could do GT1 cars? In Rennsport.
Or in Assetto Corsa.
Yes, but the tyre model in the Assetto Corsa is not up to modern standards.
That's a different discussion. But you said do GT1 cars. Yes, there's more than enough 100%. Mods for that.
100%. No. Today you can absolutely just go and jump in an Assetto Corsa. And if you really want to hurt yourself, you can take the GT1 cars around Abu Dhabi, because, dear God. However, that's the thing that it's things like that we could actually get in Rennsport. Rennsport doesn't need to create all of the content that will be on the platform. It just needs to create a base, It needs to create a good tire model, rFactor 2, and then they need to provide comprehensive tools so that the talented teams of modders and developers can create original developer quality mods for the platform and then sell them. I will happily pay money to a mod house who produces content and a high enough quality in a sim that is also high enough quality, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but then you produce a track and you call it Côte d'Azur that is similar to Monaco, and then Monaco comes on you like a ton of bricks because you're selling it. I'm not sure that's going to work.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why you then take the price off and sell it for free. Which I think this is going to backfire in Rennsport's face. I do think that the majority of the things that are going to be on their store are going to be sold for free. Yeah, hot topic Rennsport at the moment.
For sure.
Anyway, yes. So ACC, absolutely brilliant. Jump in, give it a go. Drive the new 720S, compare it to the old one. It's wonderful. The new cars are similarly wonderful. All have their own personality and unique driving style. The Porsche is still a bag of nails to handle. Sometimes, if you drive it wrong, it really punishes you. The Ferrari drives like a BMW M4, and the Lamborghini, I have on good authority, is pretty much the old Lamborghini, just easier. There you go. That's the TLDR of it.
I hear that you guys, or at least one of you, has a bone to pick with the new rFactor 2 BTCC DLC.
Oh, yeah.
Do tell.
So, as I said in the news, I think that it's at the very least, unfair to BTCC and rFactor 2 fans to be selling over the last half a year or so cars one by one, $5, €5 per car of the BTCC, and then come around when you at last have published the last car and say, oh, and you can get them all in a DLC for much cheaper, but now you bought them all already like that, so hey, tough luck, you already spent something like $40, $50, euro, all the cars, and anybody who comes later is not gonna have to spend that much money. So that's at least unfair. And I think it shows how desperate motorsport games are for money.
In the very nicest way possible. This behavior isn't new. They've been doing this for years. They did it with the GT3 cars. They did it with the GTE cars. They did it with the endurance pack. Unfortunately, it's not a motorsports games thing. It's a Studio 397 thing. And again, they do it because the market will bear.
Yeah.
So here's a question, and I want to preface this and say that I'm on y'all's side. I think this is unfair, but I'm going to play devil's advocate for just a second.
Hey.
And I'm going to say, would you have preferred that they just didn't sell it as a bundle?
I would have preferred for them to say, hey, here is a bundle, and we are not going to be giving you all the cars right now because we don't have them ready.
Yeah.
But if you buy this bundle, we promise that we're going to deliver everything, which is what Reiza does. Reiza says, hey, you want to buy Nürburgring? You want to buy Nordschleife? You're going to get all the historic versions, only at the moment we only have the modern version there. If you trust us, and we have a good track record, which is what Reiza does, we are going to be publishing all the historic versions, and they ended up even adding the Südschleife and the Gesamtstrecke, so that's a bonus, but that's a different discussion. They say, hey, we're going to deliver this and this and this, but those two are not ready yet. But if you trust us, go and buy the DLC. You have to have the track record of Reiza, of keeping your promises, even if it takes a long time, because Nürburgring has taken them at least half a year more than they expected. But I do prefer that than selling bit by bit and then turning around and saying, haha, you spent too much money, tough luck. Because the next time, I'm not buying the cars one by one. I'm gonna be waiting half a year, and then, are you publishing them as a package? No, I don't care anymore. I'm driving something else.
I think the issue is, and you said it in your explanation. Studio 397 doesn't have the trust of the community like Reiza does.
Yeah, so build that trust.
Well, now, the way that I would have done it if I was Studio 397 is I would have developed the cars and sold them as 2-packs. So they've got the BTC's car pack 1, 2, and 3, and then the full car pack, which is 8 cars and 3 seasons worth of liveries. That's fine. What I would have done is brought out the 2 car packs, or like the 4 cars individually, announced them, and been like, if you want to buy this, you can buy this. And then when they released the other 2 cars, say, look, if you liked that, there's more coming, here's the pack, and put it at this price. So, for example, because the reason why I say is because the first 2 they released was the Hyundai and the Toyota. No, Infinity. It was the Infinity and the Toyota. So if you bought those 2, you knew what front-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive touring cars felt like, which in rFactor 2 is excellent, by the way. And then in the second pack, they brought out the Hyundai and the Ford Focus ST. By the time you've got to that point, anyone with their head even half screwed on would have worked out what's going to happen or what's coming in the next few weeks or months. At that point, you'd be safe to release the pack and say, look, we've got these 4 cars, it's £17, we know it's not good value at the moment, we're going to add to it. If you see where we're going, then you can pay the money now and we'll add them to this pack later.
Yeah,
I agree
with
you. I agree with you that this was not the way to do it, but Studio 397 doesn't have the good grace with the community to be able to do it the Reiza way.
Yeah.
So there needs to be a half and half, a 50-50 of the 2 approaches, in my opinion.
And talking about Reiza, I still am enjoying the contents of the season pass that was for only 1 season, and now we're 3 years in, because Reiza said we have not delivered everything we promised we would deliver within the season pass. So until we do that, you are going to be getting the DLCs for free. And that's, you need to have the economic acumen to be able to survive that, but also to have the moral high ground in that case of saying, hey, we promised something, we're keeping our promises, because if we don't keep our promises, you're not going to continue trusting us and buying from us. And they're not going to be bringing out a second season pass, because Renato Simeoni has said it was economically not a good idea, and in hindsight it cost them money. But they're going to be be bringing another supporter pack or similar to what they did when they announced Automobilista 2, and I'm gonna be buying it. I mean, I'm gonna be buying it also because the same with Rennsport, but I would be buying it as just a consumer because they have a good track record. They've kept their promise. They said when I bought, and Automobilista 2 was not out there, not even in beta, when I paid €99 for Automobilista 1 and the promise of Automobilista 2 and the season pack for Automobilista 2, I bought into that promise. They've kept their promise, and they've overkept their promise. I've gotten much more enjoyment and worth out of that supporter pack than I would have gotten in any other case. It's one of my better sim racing investments. Studio 397 has a long way to get that kind of trust, and with shenanigans like this, they're not building up trust.
Exactly. They had 2 ways of going about it. Well, they had 2 or 3 ways of going about it. None of them were good, but as with everything at the moment, it feels as though they've done the worst possible thing, but that is our opinion.
So you guys mentioned Reiza, and there was talk of Automobilista 2. They have gotten an update. Reiza has pushed an update 1.4.8.0. A lot of points in that update. But, that update comes with a lot of physics revisions. They plan to complete those physics revisions for all cars in the game in the next update, 1.5.0. But they have the first batch of cars, which is all of the Formula Retros, all of the Formula Classics, Formula Inter, Formula USA 2023, that's IndyCar, Formula Ultimate Gen 2, Formula Junior, and all of the models of LMP1s. Everything else will come out later. That will get a later physics update. So these are all physics overhauls that will improve how everything runs in the dry.
And it improves the way the tires feel a lot. Like, I've gone from 1.5.0 cars, like the F whatevers, to 1.4 cars, and 1.4 was a revolutionary update, and you do feel the difference a lot.
And then they're also adding Barcelona, which is free during the candidate release phase. So if you have the box checked in Steam to, update to the latest version, you'll have that for free right now. However, it will be DLC, and so whenever the full release of this release candidate comes out, you'll have to pay for it to get it back.
If you don't have the season pass or
Yes,
one of the DLCs or whatever.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm okay. I think I'm okay with that.
I'm super okay with that. I think it's really cool because it kind of allows you to give it a test drive. If you're attuned to the running of the candidates, where there could be some bugs still to iron out, you get to kind of test drive it before you buy. I think that's cool. I like that.
Yeah, and that principle, if we could get more of that generally, oh boy, that would be a very good, very healthy PC market.
That's very much the Reiza way. Like, they discussed it internally. For example, now you can race, I think it's cars and tracks, but at least it's tracks, even if you don't own it, if the one organizing the race does own the DLC. So if the person organizing the race paid for the DLC for the tracks or for the cars or whatever, then when you can drive on those tracks even if you yourself don't own the DLC. And at some point they of course hope that people are gonna be loving it so much that they're gonna buy them by themselves, or they just depend on their friends.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very sane way of approaching it as well. Again, it comes back to the barrier of entry. If you make the barrier to entry low enough that people don't want to pirate your stuff, it needs to be more simple to pay for the thing than to pirate the thing, pretty much. And with the way that Reiza are running things, it is so much easier to just play the game and then go, oh, I want to do this, and Google like, it's like £5. That's fine, I'll deal with it. It's a very, very, very common sense approach.
AI has been updated. They fixed a case where the AI would run into the back of other AIs. So that's a good thing to fix.
That's realistic, isn't it?
Well, depends on who you're driving against and how you're driving. If you've got, the skills all, set up real high, you don't want them to be slamming into the back of each other. And Circuit Azure, which is Monaco, essentially, they have implemented track cut limits. So the next time you do a Monaco hot lap, be advised.
Where are the track limits in Monaco?
They say Nouvelle and Piscine, so that's coming out of the tunnel.
Yeah.
It's like the only place where there's an off track and not just a wall.
Yeah, and that's the chicane after the swimming pool, if I remember correctly, as well.
That's the only place where an off track doesn't make crunch.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Speaking of Monaco, though, did you see the Assetto Corsa mod that brought a different layout to Monaco?
Is that the one that is like Monaco but not on a race day? Is that the one?
Kind of. It actually goes out into some of the reclaimed land from the from the bay. I don't know how I feel about it. It basically, whereas you would normally go around the hotel, you don't go. Sorry, you normally go around the really tight hairpin. You don't go around the hairpin anymore. You literally go the opposite way and then off again into the reclaimed land. Oh wait, no, you do go. Oh no, you do go through the hairpin still. Sorry, got that very wrong. It's after there that it just extends the lap. It's really interesting.
Yeah, this is fascinating. I'm gonna if this is available to download, I'm gonna download this and try it out.
Well, I think it's just a Monaco map, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But it introduces a lot of very open. Yeah, it would increase the average speed of Monaco by a massive amount, and means that you come through the tunnel at a monstrous amount of speed, and then coming to the section where they have just added the track limits, it will now be an even bigger braking point. I mean, it will genuinely be incredibly heavy braking. There is a couple of things that would have to change quite dramatically to work.
Okay, right at 108 minute 8 seconds into this video, he goes past this chicane
Yeah.
at like 230 kilometers an hour, and it's like in a modern Formula One car, it would be kind of doable, but it's like the Mazda kink on the old Spa.
Yeah. No, it's not good. It's not good. No, but that's the thing, is that you'd smooth all of that out in a real race weekend. So,
Okay.
but it would mean that the lap times wouldn't be the 1 minute whatever that they are now. You're adding a good 30 seconds or so onto lap times. It might be a good idea. It just, yeah, I stumbled on it the other day, and you reminded me, because obviously the braking point into the chicane is one of the most difficult on the track, outside of the double right-hander at the end of the track, at the end of the lap. But yeah, no, really interesting layout, and I'd be interested to know. We're doing a podcast. Sound off in the comments. What do you think?
Yeah, this is fascinating for sure. Now, here's a question: would you, on the Formula One calendar, rather see a alternate Monaco or no Monaco?
No Monaco. Thank you. Well, you know what? Formula One is boring already, so one more boring race added to that or not, at the end of the day, I don't care. But before it became boring, Monaco was the most boring race. You are on pole, you finish first. Yay! Because overtaking at Monaco, if you're not Red Bull in 2023, is nary impossible. But on the other hand, since a couple of years, it's boring anyway, because you're either Mercedes dominating everything, or you are Red Bull dominating everything, or before Mercedes, you are Ferrari dominating everything.
So, I actually have I guess a slightly controversial opinion maybe about Monaco. I think Monaco is a great track. However, the cars are too big for it.
Hey.
So rather than removing Monaco, I think the cars just need to go and be the size that they were 10 years ago, you know? Like, the cars are huge now compared to where they were 10 years ago, but especially compared to where they were 20 years ago. They were tiny 20 years ago, and the racing was great. And, you know, in the golden age of Monaco in the 60s, those cars were small. Monaco is a track that's small. They fit the track. These hulking behemoths that are like 20 feet long, like, they're the size of an 18-wheeler. Yeah, of course the racing at Monaco is not going to be good. Of course. So I think that Monaco's fine.
Don't mince your words, Cody. Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, right? It's the cars. They're massive.
No, absolutely agree.
On the other hand, you can be fast and overtake, and there's enough space at Las Vegas, and, well...
That's because it's in America, and everything in America is big enough for these Formula One cars.
Yeah, that's a 6-lane road.
But the race was as boring as the race in Monaco. But that's actual Formula One nowadays. Like,
well, that's because Tilke designed it.
Hey, Tilke's good. He just doesn't have a lot of, what's the word? They keep
talent.
Trying to put him, no, they keep putting him in impossible circumstances. Here, make this track in a field. But it's a field. What am I supposed to? You were growing crops here 6 months ago. How am I supposed to make an interesting... You just want me to make Snetterton? Is that what you're saying? You want me to make a Formula One version of Snetterton?
That's not an excuse. Most of the greatest British racing tracks around were made from airfields. Those are pretty darn flat.
Yes, I agree. But they're also very high speed, which, ironically, doesn't suit Formula One. Because Formula One cars, as you said, are too big and too heavy to be able to carry apex speed. So you're driving Formula One cars, this is relative terms obviously, but you're driving Formula One cars now, much like the prototypes and the hypercars of the world. You overslow the car to get the thing to turn, and then you pile on the power on the exit, the G-forces that they're actually going through now actually aren't all that much. There's just so much mass that they have to cart around. I'm absolutely with you. I think what they should do is reduce the cars to 3 meters long and 1.8 meters wide, give them the skinny boy tires without the grooves in them, and then say, have at it, boys. You won't have any porpoising problems there because the platform's not big enough for it to porpoise.
Bingo. Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, I think it's fair to say that Formula One is still quite important, bearing in mind how passionate we all feel about it.
Well, let's see. I will posit, if you have made it this far in the podcast, comment what your favorite car is. That's what I want to know.
That's a good one.
That's a very broad one.
It's a very broad one. I want to
man.
allow for a range. We can hone in at a later date.
Tin top, open wheeler, prototype, street legal.
Yep.
Yeah, anything and everything. If there's a specific one you want to call out, if there's a certain class that you want to call out, anything and everything. I want to know what people like.
Can we include anime?
No.
Sure. The Mach 5 is the only correct answer.
That's exactly.
The Mach 5. I have a 118 scale diecast of the Mach
very
5,
cool.
and actually a 124 scale of the 2008 movie version of the Mach 5.
Yes.
I'm a Mach 5 fan.
Good
so
man.
yes, absolutely. Mach 5 is included. All right. Thank you very much to our patrons over at patreon.com/RomRom for their support and their ideas. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Until next time, save fuel, collect pickup, and we'll see each other on the podium.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.